What if certain regions of space were deliberately hidden from you? Who decides what humanity is allowed to know about the cosmos? And more importantly, what are they choosing to keep secret? These are not questions with comfortable answers. Every time you look up at the night sky, you are seeing exactly what powerful institutions want you to see. Space agencies like NASA present a carefully polished image of exploration and discovery, but beneath that surface lies something far more complex. There are layers of classification, restricted zones, and buried missions that the public rarely gets to see. The universe stretches infinitely in every direction, yet somehow certain corners of it remain completely off-limits. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the hidden side of space exploration, and what we find might change everything you thought you knew. Now, before we assume space is this wide-open frontier where anyone can point a telescope and learn everything, consider this. On Earth, governments classify information every single day. Military bases have restricted airspace. Intelligence agencies operate in total secrecy. So, why would space be any different? The answer is, it is not. Certain orbital regions, specific mission details, and particular discoveries are quietly designated as classified, kept behind walls that the average person never even knows exist. Space agencies operate within the same governmental structures that classify weapons programs and intelligence operations. That means layers of clearance, compartmentalized knowledge, and information that simply never reaches the public. The cosmos may be infinite, but what humanity is officially told about it is carefully, deliberately, and sometimes suspiciously filtered through channels designed to control the narrative. Beyond the visible night sky lies a carefully controlled battlefield of orbiting machinery that most civilians never hear about. The United States Space Force, established in 2019, operates dozens of classified satellites whose missions remain completely hidden from public knowledge. These spacecraft occupy specific orbital zones where civilian and commercial vehicles are strictly prohibited from entering. Other military branches across Russia, China, and NATO allies maintain similar restricted corridors high above Earth. What makes this particularly striking is that even the basic capabilities of these satellites, whether surveillance, communications, jamming, or something far more advanced, are never officially confirmed. Amateur astronomers occasionally track unusual orbital patterns, suggesting these classified objects maneuver in ways that defy conventional explanation. The existence of these restricted zones raises a fundamental question. If space belongs to all of humanity, why are entire regions being quietly claimed and controlled by military powers operating completely beyond public oversight? While military satellites occupy restricted orbits, something even more unsettling happens right here on Earth. Classified rocket launches occur with almost zero public announcement, slipping into the sky before most people even realize a mission was planned. These are not accidents or oversights. They are deliberate operations shrouded in institutional silence. Perhaps the most famous example is the X-37B spaceplane, operated by the United States Space Force. This unmanned vehicle spent years circling in low Earth orbit, with officials offering virtually no explanation of its purpose. Some missions lasted over 700 days. 700 days in orbit, and the public received nothing beyond vague statements about testing technologies. No cargo manifests, no mission objectives, no transparency whatsoever. What exactly was being tested up there for nearly 2 years? That question alone should make every curious mind deeply uncomfortable about what governments are quietly doing above our heads. Now let's venture into one of the most haunting chapters of space history, The Soviet space program, driven by Cold War ambition, allegedly lost cosmonauts before Yuri Gagarin's celebrated flight. Italian brothers Achille and Giovanni Battista Giudica Cordiglia claim to have intercepted radio transmissions of cosmonauts dying in orbit, transmissions the Soviets never acknowledged. These became known as the lost cosmonauts theory. On the American side, researchers and conspiracy theorists alike have accused NASA of quietly burying failed lunar and early Mars mission data to protect congressional funding and maintain public confidence. When missions underperform or produce unexplainable results, the argument goes, agencies choose silence over transparency. Whether these claims are provable or not, history confirms one undeniable truth. Both superpowers had every political reason to hide their failures from the world. Now let us turn our eyes to the moon, humanity's closest neighbor and perhaps its greatest mystery. Since the final Apollo mission in 1972, no human has returned to the lunar surface. That is over 50 years of silence. Why? The far side of the moon, the hemisphere permanently facing away from Earth, remains one of the least explored regions in our cosmic neighborhood. Theories suggest that Apollo astronauts encountered something during those missions, something significant enough to trigger a quiet but deliberate retreat from lunar exploration. Certain lunar zones appear consistently avoided in mission planning, with no official explanation ever provided. Some researchers point to unusual structures and electromagnetic anomalies detected near specific craters. Whether these claims hold truth or not, the absence of return missions speaks volumes. Silence in space exploration is rarely accidental. Some of the most unsettling moments in space exploration involve discoveries that briefly surfaced and then vanished without explanation. In 1996, astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia reportedly filmed a strange rotating object near the payload bay. The footage circulated briefly before NASA classified it under routine mission data. Similarly, certain frames from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter imagery were allegedly replaced with digitally smoothed patches, erasing what some researchers described as structured formations. Google Sky once displayed a blacked-out rectangular region near the Orion constellation, coordinates 4 hours 53 minutes and 6.49 seconds, raising immediate questions about deliberate censorship. Former NASA imaging technicians have claimed that select Hubble frames were quietly pulled from public databases after showing unexplained light sources. Each disappearance adds another layer to a pattern that feels far too deliberate to dismiss as coincidence. Now, let's talk about the telescopes themselves. Hubble and the James Webb Space Telescope represent humanity's most powerful eyes on the universe. But here's what most people never consider. These instruments collect staggering amounts of raw data every single day, and only a carefully selected fraction of that information ever reaches civilian scientists or the general public. The Space Telescope Science Institute manages these archives, and while much is accessible, enormous portions remain unprocessed or quietly restricted. Researchers who have worked with these datasets openly admit that the volume is simply overwhelming. So the question becomes, what exactly sits in those unreleased files? Some theorists claim both telescopes have captured imagery of structured anomalies, unexplained formations, and objects that defy conventional classification. Whether those claims hold weight or not, the uncomfortable truth remains. We are only seeing what we are permitted to see. Now let's talk about something orbiting above your head right now. The International Space Station has long been presented as humanity's shining example of open scientific cooperation. But look closer, and the transparency starts to crack. Certain modules aboard the station are designated for classified experiments, never featured in public broadcasts or official tours. Astronauts have reportedly been instructed to avoid discussing specific observations during live feeds. And then there are the camera cuts. Multiple times, NASA's live stream has gone dark or switched angles precisely when unidentified objects appeared near the station. Coincidence? Perhaps. But it happens with suspicious regularity. Beyond that, credible reports suggest portions of the station serve military and intelligence functions, completely shielded from public oversight. No documentation, no explanation, no accountability. The ISS may be humanity's home in space, but not every room has an open door. And here is the uncomfortable truth. NASA is not the only agency operating in the shadows. Russia's Roscosmos has maintained classified divisions since the Soviet era, many of which never dissolved after the Cold War ended. The European Space Agency, often portrayed as a transparent scientific body, has defense-linked programs that receive almost no public scrutiny. Then there is China's CNSA, which has expanded aggressively into space while releasing only carefully curated information about its missions and discoveries. What makes this even more layered is that these agencies occasionally cooperate, sharing data on joint missions and orbital coordination. But beneath that surface-level collaboration lies fierce competitive secrecy. World powers are essentially racing in the dark, each suppressing discoveries that could give rivals an advantage, turning the cosmos into yet another theater of geopolitical power and deliberate information control. So why does all this secrecy exist in the first place? The answers are layered. National security is the most obvious justification. Military satellites, surveillance capabilities, and orbital defense systems cannot be advertised without compromising strategic advantage. Then there is public panic prevention. Agencies argue that releasing unverified anomalies could trigger mass hysteria before proper conclusions are reached. Geopolitical advantage plays an equally powerful role. Knowledge of certain cosmic resources or spatial territories could shift global power overnight. And then there are scientific monopolies, where institutions protect discoveries to maintain funding dominance and academic authority. Some of this secrecy is genuinely reasonable. Protecting sensitive technology makes sense. But here is the question worth sitting with. At what point does legitimate security transform into deliberate deception? Who draws that line? And more importantly, who is watching the people drawing it? The universe was not built for governments. It was not built for agencies, military programs, or classified budgets. It belongs to every single human being who has ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what lies beyond. The secrets we have explored today are not just about space. They are about power, control, and who gets to decide what truth looks like. You have every right to ask questions, demand transparency, and refuse to accept silence as an answer. Stay curious. Dig deeper. Challenge the official narrative whenever something does not add up. Because out there, beyond the redacted files and the scrubbed images and the classified launches, the real answers are waiting. And remember this, truth is not just the final frontier, it is the only one worth exploring.